Oh, it's Morgue time. Long legs. They keep pushing this film. Yeah, and this guy. Who is this guy? More on that later. So there's John Carpenter's Tax Write-Off. I just want to say something real quick about horror comics. Horror comics, and I mean, I'm not even talking about comics today. Comics are a joke. Horror comics, modern horror and comics really don't seem to really mix well. Okay, you could argue that in the '80s you had like Taboo, Fly in My Eye, those anthologies that I used to get. Those were like the sweet spot, but you don't have stuff like that anymore. Obviously, everything before pre-code was great, but modern horror, like Stephen Niles, man, I'm not. 30 Days a Night was okay. You know what I mean? That's it's just opinion. So, oh, it's rumor, dawn of the woman. There's finally women in horror. So we go here to Andrea. Now, I think Arkham Reporter says, you seem to have a thing for Andrea. Maybe I do. She is not an unattractive woman. So, I should say she's an attractive woman. She'll be like, what do you mean by not an unattractive? No. But there's more than just looks, darling. So we go here. She's talking about these stats. Most of you reside in the land of liberty. Opportunity and Dunkin' Donuts in every corner. Now, I don't know if she realized what she just did. Maybe she did. She took a shot at America with our Dunkin' Donuts, which is much inferior to the Canadian franchise Tim Hortons. I know this because there's a Tim Hortons in Staten Island on Highland Boulevard, and it just blows away. The donuts, the coffee are much superior. And she's talking about how, obviously she's younger than me. Before streaming services and e-commerce, I felt like I lived much further from your border than I actually did, which is ironic. She's from Montreal, right? Montreal is closer to New York City than Buffalo is. Okay, so it's kind of course the whole thing with Canadians, right? Well, we'll go here, right? The Great White North, right? Target, TJ Maxx, and Macy's were mythical spaces. Monopoly, except our colorful monopoly money, I argue that the Canadian money and most of the currency of the world looks aesthetically better than the American dollar. So I'm taking the Canadian side here so far. Hollywood was like another planet that sent flying saucers to our cities to abduct any promising Canadian showbiz talent. Okay, you have like the great John Candy. So, but then you had like you said, the other end, the comedy I didn't like the very overrated Kids in the Hall, and of course Cronenberg, right? I believe he never left, right? And then the whole thing with George Romero. George Romero made it. She says who sought residency here for reasons we can only speculate and have to do with resources necessary for the imminent zombie apocalypse. Well, we all know why. Pierre Trudeau and the left government, they actually were the ones to invent tax breaks for filming in Canada. It makes a lot of sense, just like this magazine. George went up there because he was able to make, movies for less money. I mean, originally you could argue that's why he went out when he was a young man to Pittsburgh. I've been good-natured about the jibes of Canada is America's plaid flannel hat, right? Maybe even guilty of a wee bit of smugness. Well, this is when American politics started to so closely resemble sketch comedy that CNN became indistinguishable with SNL. Well, they are indistinguishable because CNN and SNL both suck. Right? But also in terms of the American politics, well, first off, darling, careful, with the winner you got up there, okay? But in terms of the little rivalry with Canada, DFC Son's probably gonna laugh at this because he's around my age. The whole thing with Canada is always like Canadians are always like, oh, you Americans, right? And Americans are like, Canada, where's that? That's in Minnesota, right? So basically that's the relationship between the two countries. And it's just going through it. Now, basically, the gist of this editorial was that, as a sort of being out of the way, because they are based, I believe, in, Etobicoke, one of the boroughs of Toronto. I could be wrong. They're sort of out of the way, so they don't have as much access as, like, say, someone in California or even New York City would have to these things, and how it's a interesting struggle also for this is a print thing. Now they get help from the government, right? But Obviously, the internet is more immediate, but there's this, like I said, I'm a boomer now, so apparently I like to have things in my hands. Oh, I try not to kvetch about these things too publicly, lest I be accused of griping about the difficulties of my dream job, or using words like kvetch when I'm not Jewish for that matter. Whoa, careful, Andrea, careful. No, of course, as a New Yorker, I use Yiddish words without even thinking. It's kind of funny when you think about it. It's really funny when you think about it. Before you close this issue, to Google all the nonsense Canadianese I've just spat, which is funny because I knew all this stuff. Right? I won't lie though, the average American probably did it. She goes down here, Canada and U.S. Sites of power, privilege, and soaring inequality rates. That's true. That's true. Left-wing cultural establishment. You've never had more wealth inequality like in my hometown or the whole Western world. Why is that? You have a more left-wing establishment culture than you've ever had, and you have a more hyper-capitalistic friggin' plutocracy than you've ever had. But we can all just enjoy the ride, from Yankees to the Hosers and everyone in between. Cheers. Share the love, eh? Now, if you want a Canadian film that is as Canadian as you got, you need to see Strange Brew, the Mackenzie brothers. It was a skit or sketch, as they say in SCTV. The Mackenzie, Bob and Doug Mackenzie, friggin' hilarious. That movie's great. And Mel Blanc, who was also another famous Canadian. Of course, the voice of all the Looney Tunes is in that film. So, anyway, that's DFC Sons. There's a little Canadian for you, eh? No mention, in terms of Canadians either. She didn't mention, first of all, she didn't mention any of the beers. Like Molson, Moosehead, Labatt Blue, the first legal beer I drank in Toronto in the 90s. Because it was 19 in drinking age. No other mentions of these things. So anyway, she is young. So, we go to here. You go to the tchotchkes. Oh, there's my Yiddish. So now you get this film, and I look at this is the film, right? Junior FBI agent. Boo. FBI. Right? Wait till the history will remember the war crime, the peace crimes of. Okay, stop. Now you look at this right off the bat. Wait a minute, this seems like a serial killer, a female FBI agent. The setup for Longlegs is so Silence of the Lambs. It's almost a joke. Luckily we got the boss here, right? But now, I mean, to be honest with you, when I've read this film, it doesn't. I'll be honest, it doesn't seem the concept, the premise doesn't seem very interesting to me at all. Like I probably wouldn't see this, but I think it's a case of the execution of it is being pretty good, and also having Nick Cage in it, right? Like I said, I still gotta see In a Violent Nature yet, so this will have to wait. Of course, the director Oz Perkins is the son, one of the sons of, Anthony Perkins, right? Tony Perkins, a great actor, creepy, always play like a creepy role. Of course, he was gay. Of course, I remember when he died. I was like, dang, he died of that. So I guess he was gay, yeah. I didn't know he had a family, though, right? He had a wife and two children. Now, Oscar Wilde did that, too. I mean, he had two sons, and one of them got killed in World War I. But he's talking about, whatever. He's respectful of his father. So despite the fact that, obviously, I mean, whatever you are, man, once you're married, you should be loyal to your wife. I call me crazy. I'm a crazy right-winger, so... And apparently, and now this is, listen, the guy, that's tragic enough, right? Apparently the mother died in the 9/11 event, right? I mean, people did die and not, on the planes. I think she was on one of the planes. I don't think she was in the building. So, man, this whatever, man, this him and I guess his brother here, I mean, they must have gone through stuff. And he's got to be my age because we've got the same haircuts. Whatever, man. You know, sorry, brother. What a rough life there. Anyway, of course, there's gonna be two dead. Oh, we got Day of the Woman. Now, this is funny because, of course, Heidi Honeycutt. Well, when I was, I've been doing business in another region of the country the last couple of weeks, so everything is cool now. Just a family, health thing I had to help someone with. I saw this 50 horror film, the 50 horror films, or the greatest 50 horror films you've never seen. Right? So I was actually watching it for all people, my mother, who actually enjoyed it. She goes, I'd rather watch, I don't like horror movies, but I'd rather watch like documentaries about them. And I go, okay. So I was watching it, and of course, yours truly saw almost every damn film in the 50 horror films you've never seen. But this woman kept coming up, Heidi Honeycutt, right? And of course, she does a female, the women's special, what is it? Film festival that celebrates women, women, because women, because I'm a woman, I should celebrate women, right? And so now there's a new documentary. This film, Slumber Party Massacre, such an overrated film. I'm sorry, this film is so generic. Okay, I remember renting it in the 80s and being like, this movie's not that great. Like the killer is not really cool. It's very lame. Right? Apparently, a woman directed that. So yeah, they go over the usual. Listen, I love having tons of women involved on screen, behind the scenes. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's just there's nothing really crazy here. So just the usual, who could argue with Joe Dante? I can't. Everything that comes out of his mouth is crap. But it's funny too. She talks about Taiwan. What is it? These Taiwanese films, extremely violent, low budget films made in the Taiwan. Almost all your kung fu movies were made there. You want to talk about violent, right? But like I said, as the thing goes, I spit on your celluloid. Right? Well, she talks about silent film directors. Now it's interesting, the history of it, right? Who are regarded as feminist pioneers, made horror films. It makes sense, doesn't it? In the end, the horror has been wrought, hasn't it? From the feminism. Oh, Andrea's gonna kick my ass. They talk, of course, the famous, the woman that did Pet Sematary. Right? Pet Sematary is great. It's a great film. But women are just so awesome. Right? It's really silent stuff is interesting to me. Trilby, remember Trilby, Svengali. Oh, careful. And it's funny too. At the end, Heidi, to her credit, she even she brings up the Me Too movement. Oh, Me Too. The burden of proof doesn't matter anymore. But being a woman director, right? I think ultimately someone's gender shouldn't even come into discussion when studios decide to hire a director. Interesting. I don't know. They mentioned long-awaited follow-up to Luz. I've never heard of Luz, and so long-awaited. I don't know. I mean, this seems kind of interesting. Not really. I'll get around to probably not seeing it. It has nothing to do with the film. Maybe it's good. I don't know. I only have so much time, and every female protagonist looks like this. Like what's it? Tilda Swinton. It's the gender war. The gender is a huge thing. I keep saying. So, and otherwise they put, what is this sexist stuff in here? So it's like some kind of, like I said, comic, candy vigilante, a Harley Quinn, of course. Anyway, I'm gonna have to make 2 vids. This is how it has to be. It's not ideal circumstances right now, but I can't wait to get home in about 9 hours.